Scrum, line out, attack, defence. There's one word here. Underlined on. Discipline.
Yeah.
No words over the last year how poor it's been compared to what it was previously.
Well,
surely that'll be one of the biggest marks in the changing room above them head saying, come on, no back chat and no penalty count.
Yeah, you're always going to have a number of penalties. It's unavoidable, you know. But I think it's sometimes it's silly ones and
22, 23 yellow cards. Is that right?
Yeah, and just
similar amount of games.
Trying to, like the penalty count in the Ireland-South Africa game was 18. Probably about 8 of them were at scrum time, so that bulks it up a lot. You know, if you go to Ireland, New Zealand and Chicago, it was 11 penalties, not extraordinarily high. Australia, when you're winning a game, 46-19, it's 9 penalties. So again, 7, 8, 9 is probably where you're at for most teams. Even if you're dominant, there's always a few at the breakdown. There's a couple that, you know, you'll be given for offsides in midfield, all that kind of stuff. Ireland, Japan, 8 penalties. So
it's the yellows and reds, Alan, isn't it? Or the yellows, sorry.
Yeah, well, look, the red card for James Ryan is, look, I think it's reckless the way he goes in against South Africa. He's just got to be way more careful in that, and you just can't charge in anymore like that. If someone's about putting their hands on the ball, yes, you need great urgency to get in, but is it better to let him win a penalty than not fly in with your arm tucked and with a risk of catching? If the arm is up here, all the urgency in the world and kind of dive even, you know. But it's the Tyburn one against New Zealand. Look, that's not bad discipline because it was proven that it was rescinded, that red card. But I suppose it's under pressure, making sure you get back on side and that you don't give away those silly penalties. I don't think it's a major issue, but I think it's an issue that...
Well, what about Ringrose last year against Wales? Joe McCarthy against France? Crowley in the
Joe McCarthy's was poor.
There is
a few. Yeah, they need to be much more careful with those kind of ones because they're the frustrating ones that really, really hurt you. But you know, a way of avoiding that is trying to hold on to the ball longer yourself, and then you're the one that's trying to, even if you're outfield, that you're building phase, you're attacking, and that you're kind of more dominant with possession, and that was Ireland's big strength in 22, 23, and for good part of 24 as well. When you think they went to South Africa and won that second test on the back of winning a Six Nations after, you know, really disappointing, World Cup. They've got to get back to those levels. And look, Joe Schmidt in his time here when Ireland were incredibly difficult to beat, and they won that Grand Slam in 2018 in Twickenham. They won a series in Australia. They beat New Zealand in November. Did he get was he World Coach of the Year and Johnny Sexton's World Player of the Year?
Sounds about right.
Obviously the World Cup in Japan wasn't good, and it was England came in February or 2019 and beat Ireland in Dublin. That was the start of a really poor year. But I think one of the hallmarks of Joe Schmidt's teams previous to that and the Irish teams that won championships before that were discipline. And he was so big in it. He was so big on keeping that penalty count really low. And it was well renowned and people, you know, I heard stories about Joe doing video sessions and actually saying to players, that could have been a penalty there. You were offside, your foot was a half up over the ruck, the referee could have pinged you. So he would pick out instances in the video sessions that weren't penalised and saying that's poor discipline to me, that you're half a yard offside, or your hand was in the ruck, or your angle into the breakdown was wrong. So he would pick loads of examples, and it was a massive focus on them. So all this stuff would have come up because it's not a coincidence, Stuart, that Caelan Doris spoke about discipline, Andy Farrell spoke about discipline, and Caelan Doris, I thought it was really intriguing. He
said in the launch to me,
and he more or less said it was responsibility, his discipline as well. And you know, Caelan Doris probably, you know, we haven't seen the dominant wins and penalties from him, and I think he's incredibly honest. I think we need to see him back playing brilliantly at that world-class level again. He has that ability, but he needs his teammates to go with him, and then they need to have good discipline and make sure the referees, you get the referee on side. All these decisions are always not going to be perfect. Some of them are interpretations, particularly around scrums and breakdowns at times. But there's a lot of voices and there's a lot of people questioning decisions, and I think Caelan Doris needs to manage that better himself. And again, he's admitted that, because he's not an aggressive kind of shouting in your face scenario, but he's probably questioning a lot of things that he just needs to pick his moments. There's certainly moments in a game where you have to go to the referee and say, I'm not happy with that one of my players. I think that's a high shot, or they've shot out of the line, they're offside, they've stopped a try. Of course, you've got to have that debate. But it's a big part of it, really, yes. And I think if you go, I guarantee you, Stuart, if Ireland were to go and do the unthinkable at this stage, and that's what it is, and go and win in Paris, if they were, which is unlikely, I guarantee you their penalty count would be low if they were to do that. Yeah, it would be. And sometimes there's penalties that are unavoidable, that there is situations where you get ahead and the opposition are chasing, and there's a few penalties for offside midfield and things that are very marginal calls, but they tend to happen. But yeah, if Ireland to get a result in Paris, they need 8 and 9 out of 10 performances from all the players, and they need really good discipline. That still doesn't guarantee it, because you're playing against a team here that their natural instinct and their ability and their X factor with some of those backs is just off the charts.
Yeah.